How to retire in 3 easy steps. That is what we're going to talk about today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. Now, listen, a recent survey of 3,000 workers revealed that 25% or 750 of those planned to retire early. Now, what does retire early mean? Well, it could be retiring at 55. It could be retiring at 50. It could be retiring at 60. And for you, it might be retiring at 65. So when we're talking about retiring early, you might be watching this and thinking, Drew, I'm 60 years old. I'm 58. Retiring early, that's past me. No. You can still take these steps to retire earlier than you expected. Now, here is some of the I want to say complications or some of the things that we've got to look out for when we're thinking about retiring early. Honestly, the average savings for Americans is not very high. Let me show you this. This is a great visual that I found recently. And this is retirement savings. It's visualizing America's average retirement savings by age. And we're talking about 3 simple steps to retire early. But we kind of have to have a come to Jesus meeting on how much do we actually have saved for retirement, like right now. So if you look at this, under the age of 35, the average save for retirement is $49,000, but the median is $19,000. The median is a much better, it's going to give you a better swath of the overall American retirement savings than the average does. The average gets skewed high and low, but the median is right in the middle. And this tells you where everyday Americans are at. And those are the people that I want to work with, the hardworking mom and pop, going out the door, taking your kids to school, showing up every day and saving. And so this is what we're looking at. So under 35, it's $19,000. Now, ages 35 to 44, which is where I fall now, I keep moving in these brackets. You get these surveys and things, and they say, okay, are you 18 to 29? I was like, yeah, I'm there. Oh, are you 30? And I'm like, oh, I'm in the 35 to 40. I can't go to the young adults class at church anymore. Now I'm like, what are we going to do? Anyway, ages 35 to 44, the average save for retirement is $142,000. The median is $45,000. So if we're talking about retiring early, this right here, now, and again, if you're 58, 60, 62, this is still a good video. But if you're wanting to retire at 55 or retire at 57 or retire at 60, and you're in this age range, 35 to 44, this is where you got to get your butt in gear, because this is where you've got to allow compound interest. And I always say God's greatest gift outside of Jesus is compound interest. Compound interest has to do its work right here. So the average savings at age 35 to 44 is $142,000. Median is 45. Now, ages 45 to 54, the average saved is $313,000. The median is $115,000. So we're getting better. You see, it's going up, which is good, but it's not necessarily great. 55 to 64, this is where I meet a lot of you. Average saved, $538,000. The median's $185,000. And ages 65 to 74, the average is $609,000 and the median is $200,000. And then if we take all families, $334,000 is the average savings. The median is $87,000. So the average American family has $87,000 saved for retirement. And if we want to retire early, to be honest, if we want to retire at all, I got a video coming out on Monday called You Can't Retire. There's a Wall Street Journal article talking about how people just can't retire. And we're going to address that in that video. But we've got to save more. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Now, this is a good visualization. You can go to Visual Capitalist to get this. And it can help you understand where you're at to other people. Okay. Now, Federal Reserve, this comes from the Federal Reserve data. Come down here. Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finance from 2022. So this is not something, I get a lot of comments and people are like, well, Drew, these surveys don't count in. I have like 5 IRAs and I've got a couple 401ks. And I'm like, yeah, but that might be the Vanguard survey, and that might be the Fidelity survey, and that might be the Charles Schwab surveys. But this is the Fed. and they're looking at all your savings. Okay. And that's where we're coming into these numbers. And these are not made up. Here's the actual Federal Reserve numbers. Same thing we were just looking at, age 55 to 64. There's the average, or there's the medians. So you can see that it's not very good. And so we've got to really start thinking about how can we save more for retirement, especially if we want to retire early. Bob Knob, good morning. Good morning, fine sir. Steve says, hi, Drew. Hope you didn't have too many problems with the hurricanes. Listen, we had Debbie, we had Helene, we had Milton, and then we had a low pressure front that wasn't named. Not excited about hurricane season. I'm hoping it's over. They keep telling me there's like 5.5 more weeks of hurricane season. I'm like, I'm gonna go throw some ice in the water or something to cool it down. So here's step number 1. You want to retire early. 3 simple steps to retire early. The first thing you want to do is you want to set a high savings rate. Set a high savings rate. Now, the average American saves about 4% of their income on an annual basis. So let me give you that in numbers. Let's just pull out the old handy financial calculator. If you make $50,000 a year, okay, the average American's saving 4% of that. That's $2,000 divided by 12. It's about $166 a month. Now, I understand that it's hard out there. I understand there's inflation, property taxes, property insurance, health insurance. I mean, listen, I got 3 kids, 2 dogs, a wife, life insurance, a property insurance. I mean, I get it. It's hard to save. But the average American is saving 4%. If you're wanting to retire early, or if you're wanting to retire at all, you've got to have a higher savings rate. That means we might have to make sacrifices on other things. Now, I'm not telling you to eat beanie weenies in order to sacrifice your lifestyle for retirement. Okay. You got to eat. You got to enjoy life, because you might not wake up one day, right? There's a good balance, right, between saving for retirement and living life. And I believe you got to find that healthy balance. But the average American is saving 4% a year. You want to be saving. The rule of thumb, I think T. Rowe Price has something on this. The rule of thumb that you want to be saving is about 10 to 15%. So 10 to 15% is what you want to be saving of your gross income. Okay, so if you make $50,000 a year, we'll use that example again. 10% of that's $5,000. Okay, if we want to do 15%, that's $7,500. Divide that by 12. That's $625 a month. Now, if you've got a 401k, a 403b, and you're able to put money in to get a match, let's say you can put in 10%, you get a 3% match. Hey, that's 13%. Now, I don't like to count the match. Sometimes I say, hey, let's not act like the match exists. Let's just try to save, and let's just say the match is free money. But I get what's going on. Inflation, cost of goods and services are high. Just going to the doctor is expensive. So use the match to your benefit. If you have a 401k, a 403b at work, and you are not contributing to it, there's actually a study out there. I don't have it. I should have grabbed it. But there's a number of people who have 401ks, 403bs, and they're not contributing, TSPs, and you get free money. So let's say you work for Honeywell and you get a 3% match on your 401k, and money's tight. At least try to put in 3%. If you can put in 1, 2, 3, that's great. Try to put in something to get the match. But what we'd like to see is 10 to 15% of your gross income. Now, if you want to retire early, you got to set the bar really high. Now, I see the videos about FIRE on YouTube and people that say, hey, look at us. We retired to Portugal and we're awesome. I get that. You got to save a lot of money and set a high savings rate if you want to retire early. Let me show you. This is T. Rowe Price. I told you I'd show you this. This is what T. Rowe Price says right here. If you're 30, a good benchmark is you want to have about half of your salary saved today. Okay, so if you make $50,000 a year, you want to save about $25,000. That could include your emergency fund. That could include, some CDs, things like that. And also it's going to include 401ks, IRAs, and those kind of things. Todd says, good morning, Drew. Good morning, Todd in Illinois. Fast Eddie, I'm sure you're going to rub it in, you Yankee fan there. How you doing, buddy? Age 35, 1 to 1.5 salary saved today, 40, and you can see how this goes up. At 55, you want 4.5 to 8 times your salary saved today. But here's the problem, right? Like that ain't really happening. Age 55 to 64, 185,000 is the median save for retirement. So that's not, hopefully that's not, where are we at here? 4.5 to 8 times salary, because that's a really low salary. So we've really got to set a higher savings rate if we want to retire early. Now I brought my whiteboard up here. You guys know I love my whiteboards. Okay, let me see if I can get back to it. There we go. There's my whiteboard. Now I got my glass board over there, which I love my glass board, but this is my little whiteboard. I want to show you something. Let's do some math on how much you need to save. And I want to start at age 30 just to show you compound interest. But obviously we can look at 40 and 50. But what we want to look at is a higher savings rate to how much do we need to save to get to retirement, right? And obviously there's factors like Social Security, your pensions, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, Social Security. If you retire before 65, there's healthcare costs. There's where you live, like Florida's different than if you live in like Cheyenne, Wyoming, right? Or if you live in Texas is different than if you live in California. So where you live is a big deal. You know, if you might say, I want to retire early, like you might live in Tampa, like me, but you might be like, I'm sick of hurricanes. I'm sick of property taxes. I don't like I got dropped by my home insurance again. You know, it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll go to a state that they don't drop my home insurance every year because of hurricanes. And so you might say, I'm going to leave where I'm at and go to a different state to lower my cost of living so I can retire early. I've got a lot of clients that move overseas. We just put a YouTube short out talking about moving overseas. A lot of people going to the Philippines and Mexico and other countries. I'm working with a client right now. They are wanting to move to Italy. And so we are putting the plans in place for them to retire. They live in Colorado and they want to move to Italy. And so we're putting those plans in place. We're looking at, you know, what it's going to be like in Italy. We're trying to gather as much information as we possibly can to get the cost right. And so we're putting together a financial EKG. We call it a financial EKG. It's a detailed financial plan to help them understand what are they going to face in retirement. And that's really what we do here at our firm. And listen, if you want to talk to us, you can go to our website. I think I've got it on here. Do I have our website on here? Here it is. PearlWealthGroup.com. Go to contact. You go to this Calendly page. Set up a discovery phone call with us. It's 30 minutes. Doesn't cost you anything. And we can go through your retirement. Now, let's go back to this. Okay. So we want to set a high savings rate if we want to retire early. So let's put it at zero. Let's say we have $0 saved. Okay. And we're 30 years old. Okay. Now I'm just going to do this so we can see the years, but obviously we can change this to 40, 50. And let's say for the next 25 years. So we'll go to 55. Okay. We're going to get an 8% return in the market. Now that's our rate of return in the market. Now, the reason I'm using 8%, we're looking at a longer term time horizon. Normally when I'm doing rates of return and we're projecting this out for clients, I'm usually looking at 5% while you're working and 4% after retirement. That's behind the mean of what the market's actually average. Now, a 60-40 portfolio, 60% equity, 40% fixed income over the last 50 years has averaged 8.5%. So I'm going to say 8% over the long term. Now, it could be less than that. I don't foresee that. The last 50 years, we've had a lot of garbage, right? We've had the tech bubble. We've had the financial crisis. We've had COVID. We had various different presidencies, policies, people shot at. National stuff, international stuff, and the market's averaged 8.5%. So that, I think 8% is a good rate of return if we're looking 25 years. So for 30, we're getting an 8% rate of return, and we want to go to 55. And let's say we're able to save $15K annually. So we're able to save $15,000 a year. We get an 8% rate of return. So maybe we just put that into like an S&P 500 fund, something like VU with Vanguard, just their S&P 500 fund. I think the expense ratio is like 0.03%. And if you have a 401k or 403b, you probably have this or something like this. Maybe it's the Fidelity version, which I don't know off the top of my head what the ticker symbol is for that. If you have questions about that, just contact me. We can look at that. But We're putting it into VU. We're looking at 8% rate of return over 25 years. At the end of that time frame, we'd have $1,188,782. Okay, that's compound interest. Just putting it into VU, just letting compound interest do its thing. That's $15,000 a year. So what is that a month? 15 divided by 12, 15,000. Come on. That's $1,250 a month. Now, I mean, I know that might be a stretch, but think about it as in I'm getting a match at my 401k. I'm putting the money in. How can we get up to that? And that's at 55. Now, if you don't have the ability at 30, I mean, I'm looking at this as a 30-year-old, obviously, but if you don't have the ability to put this in, just take this number down to whatever you've got to do, and it's going to get you to a place. Now, here's the thing. You might not be able to retire at 55 like you want to, but you might be able to retire at 60 or 57. That's why we do the financial EKG. Let's project out exactly where we think we're going to be putting this money in. But when you're investing, and we're going to talk about this as step number 3 in how to retire early, consistency is key. Consistency, putting the money in, okay? Continuing to do it, not giving up. All right, so that's putting $15,000 in a year, and that's looking at this over a 25-year time period. So again, if you're wanting to retire early, you have to set a high savings rate, which means you've got to look at your budget. You've got to look at what you're spending your money on, and you've got to possibly lower or get rid of some other expenses so that you can save more in your investing accounts. And we're going to get into how to invest here in just a second. Step number 3, where we want to put that money and how we want to set it up. But if all that makes sense, put it in the comments section. Keep going, Drew. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. So number 2, and I might do some more whiteboard examples here in just a second. Let's just put this out of the way so I don't knock it down. So step number 2, how to retire early in 3 easy steps. Step number 2 is budget, and it's budget, and it's budget. Now, budget is how many letters is that? 6 letters? I know it's not a 4-letter word. It's a 6-letter word. But a lot of times when we say budget, the first thing you think about is who? Dave Ramsey, right? Budget. But he's right. You got to have a budget. What are you willing to cut today? What are you willing to decrease today? What are you willing to give up today for future freedom? Let me say that again. Like we at church, right? Bullet number 1. What are you willing to give up today for future freedom? And that's really what a budget does. A budget allows us to look at what we're spending our money on. I do an annual budget with my family. My wife and I sit down, we have 2 budgets. We have our business budget and we have the budget for our household. And we look at those 2 budgets and we say, okay, where are we spending our money on? Is there anything that we can get rid of? Is there anything that we need to decrease? Is there anything that we need to add into the budget for this coming year? Is it recreational activities? Are there things that's going on that we need to continue to adjust? And so you've got to have a running budget. A good business has a profit and loss statement, a P&L statement. And they look at that P&L statement, hopefully, if they're a good business, very regularly to adjust how they're running their business. Now, the only business that I know that doesn't care about its spending and can spend all at once is the government. And they ain't doing a very good job of it because, right, Social Security is going to have a 20%, 25% haircut in 2033. Medicare is going to have a good little haircut coming up. And so you don't want to be the government. We can't print money. Wish we could. Can't do it. And so what are you willing to cut today for future freedom? Now, I like to use our software when we're talking about expenses. So let me show you this. This is our retirement software. And this is Gary Beavers, or Jerry Beavers. And his expenses are $3,100 a month. There's our average inflation rate. Now, I want to show you why I like using this expense software when we're doing this, because we want to visualize what our expenses are. Now, many different websites are going to try to tell you how much you're going to spend in retirement. I think I actually have, let me see if I can find it. If Fidelity, I think Fidelity put out a really good, let me see this. This is how much will you spend in retirement. This is from Fidelity. expect to spend 55% to 80% of your current income annually in retirement. Now, the replacement ratio is a ratio that financial planners will use, and they'll say, hey, you're going to need to replace a portion of your income. What I like about this chart is it kind of breaks it down. Let me get down to the actual chart here. So here's your annual income range at retirement. So let's say you make less than $50,000 at retirement. Well, then your estimated retirement income replacement ratio is 80%. So do you see that? So 80% of this 50,000 is going to have to be replaced in retirement. But if you make more than $120,000, your annual replacement is probably somewhere between 55 and 65%. Now that can be made up with Social Security, pensions, dividends, investments. We call that kind of a complete allocation of your income when we're looking at trying to create an income plan, when we're looking at creating those. So when you're thinking about how much will I spend, expenses are big, but understanding how much of your income you need to replace is also very important. So in the software, what we do is here's how we calculate this in. Let me talk about some things that you need to make sure you understand. The first thing is you want to understand IRMAA. What is IRMAA? IRMAA is the tax or the cost that you pay for Medicare Part B. Okay, right now it's $174. It's projected to go to $185 next year. Okay, but right now it's at $174. So IRMAA, and I'll show you how this works. Here's IRMAA for Jerry. He's a single guy. Okay, so if you make $103,000 or below, your Part B premium is $174, and you pay nothing for Part D. That's zero, so $174. Married, $206 and below. Okay, now 103 to 129, it goes up to $244. Okay, and you can see how it goes up. Your Part B premium goes up, and your Part D premium can go up. That's called your IRMAA. You want to make sure you calculate this. Drew, why do I want to calculate my IRMAA? Well, we talk about Roth conversions on this channel. We talk about doing various things. All of your income, once you turn 65, is going to calculate towards this IRMAA tax. And so you want to make sure you understand what's my IRMAA going to be and how much am I going to pay for Part B? Because I've had people come to me and they've said, Drew, my advisor told me to do Roth conversions. I took my money out of my IRA and I put it in a Roth IRA, or I put it into a, what do they call those, souped up life insurance, IUL, something or other. And they say, oh my gosh, my Part B premium is $400, but they didn't tell me that. And I'll say, well, that's why you got to have financial EKG, because we want to know if we do Roth conversions, right? There's pros and cons to everything. If we're doing the Roth conversions, which I love because taxes are going to go up in the future. If taxes go up and we do Roth conversions, is that going to hurt us in the short term, right? I had a client sell his apartment complex. Okay, his wife and him, and she had passed away. He decided to sell this apartment complex that they owned up in Wisconsin. Well, they recognized a pretty good profit because they'd owned the complex since like the either late 80s and 90s for a long time. So the cost basis was very low. He sold it, and then his Part B premium went up for 2 years. And so you've got to understand what your IRMAA costs are going to be. Now, some other things you want to be thinking about. How we do expenses, I try to make this easy for clients so that they can feel confident and get some clarity, right? When people come to me for a financial plan, I want to make it simple, right? I'm from Kentucky. I like to make things simple. I don't want to talk about alphas and betas and standard deviations and all that stuff. You know, some people try to talk to me and they try to like tell me how smart they are. And all. I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. But here's what I want to answer for you. Can I retire? Like, am I going to be okay? Are we going to run out of money? And then after we answer those three questions, then we can get into Social Security optimization. Then we can get into various tax strategies. Then we can get into the expenses and the Roth conversions and rates of returns and secrets of return risk and all the various factors that affect your retirement. But the first thing we got to answer is, can I retire? And am I going to be okay? And that's where we need the clarity. So with expenses, we want to break this down into various different categories. The first category I call is baseline. So your baseline expenses are going to be expenses that will continue forever. So baseline expenses are things that will never, ever change. So your eating, your drinking of fluids, if you're going to stay in the same area, or your property taxes, your property insurances. Now, some of that might be inside of your mortgage payment. We want to bring that out. We only want to have your principal and interest in your mortgage payment. And I'll get to that in just a second. But baseline is going to be like, if you're 95, you still need to eat, right? If you're 85, you probably still need to put gas in your car. So baseline expenses are things that are going to go on forever. And we want to have inflation on those expenses because they're not set expenses. They're not things that are just going to be the same every month, every single year, right? Go to Costco. I always use the example buying raspberries. I like to buy raspberries at Costco. They've been as high as $7.99. They've been as low as $3.99. Okay, that's inflation, and so that's a variable cost, and so that's why we put an inflation rate on that. Now, another thing you want to be thinking about. One of the questions I always ask, if you sit down with me, so Bob Knob's on here. I said, hey Bob, if you're sitting down with me, here's one of the questions I ask. I say, hey Bob, what are some of your dreams and goals for retirement? What do you visualize? If we were having coffee, so if we're having coffee, I'm gonna have a little drink here. Chick-fil-A coffee. It's actually pretty good. They are not sponsoring this video, by the way, but they got good coffee. Bob and I, if we're sitting down, what are some of your dreams and goals? If we're having coffee 10 years from now and you're retired and you said to me, Drew, I have had a successful retirement because, I want to know that answer. Because I want to put that in the financial EKG. I want to know what makes you tick. What gets you excited? What do you want to accomplish? And so for Jerry, we're looking at travel. $300 a month with inflation from 1024 on. So he wants to do this forever. He wants to travel as long as he possibly can. Now this is a case where we've got about $375,000 saved for retirement. So it's a little bit of a lower asset. I don't mean this. I mean, he saved a lot of money. He's doing a lot better. Listen, he's got what has he got? $375,000 saved. How old is he again? Jerry, 62. He's got more than the median. He's doing really good. But when we calculate out expenses and things, he's running out of money a little earlier than we like. So we've got to that's why we want to have a really good expense plan. So for him, it's travel. Here's health insurance. Gosh, you have got to calculate health insurance, $400 per month for him. He's a single guy. We're looking at some subsidies, things like that. You're a married couple. I've been doing calculations for people. I got a guy right now who's retiring in Arizona. We're looking at $1,000 to $1,500 a month for health insurance. And he's retiring at, I can't remember how old he is right now, but I know we've got to do that for a couple of years. That's a lot of money. You want to make sure you calculate in your health insurance. And then Medicare. Yes, you have a Medicare cost in IRMA, but you also have a Medicare cost in a supplement, Advantage plan, and a Part D plan. So whether you do a Part C plan or a Medigap plan, or you have to have a Part D plan if you do Medigap, Part C, you have the Part D in it, there's cost to that, $150 a month. Miscellaneous expenses. What if your air conditioner goes out? What if you need new tires? The timer on our pool just broke. It's $200. That you got to have miscellaneous expenses. You want to calculate this in. Now, if you have a mortgage, let me show you something. Let's say you had a mortgage, and let's say it was $1,000. We want to strip out taxes and insurance. We want to put that into baseline. Okay. If you have a mortgage, you're going to have a 0% inflation rate on that, right? Because your mortgage payment's going to stay the same except for what goes to principal and what goes to interest. That's called your amortization schedule, right? So more goes to interest at the early times and it flip-flops to more goes to principal as time goes on, okay? Now, watch what happened to his inflation rate. His average inflation rate went to 2.47. Okay, now if I take this out, see, it's 3.27. So on this $4,100, his average inflation is 3.27. This is what I see. A lot of times people will send me Excel spreadsheets, and I'll go, well, you're putting inflation on your mortgage and on your auto payments. So we go down to the mortgage, we make that 0. If he had an auto payment, so you had an auto loan, $500, 0, and it's going to end. Let's say his auto payment's going to end in 2027. Okay, and his mortgage, let's say it's going to end in 2040. I don't know. So now we have some end dates. See how we have end dates on health insurance because Medicare is going to kick in? Okay. Actually, I should put, this needs to be changed. 02/2027. I'm glad you caught that. So we want to calculate expenses. If we want to retire early, we have to have a great idea of what our expenses are going to be because we're going to get clarity on this. Morning, Kara. Thanks for joining me. Bob's eating Chick-fil-A right now. I got the number, I think it's a number 6, Bob, breakfast burrito. They put chicken, egg, cheese. They put the hash browns in the burrito, but I asked them not to do that. I don't want the hash brown in the burrito. Gary says, morning, Drew, your demand. Keep it simple. Spoke with you on Monday. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. And Bob also said this before the Chick-fil-A. I had to reevaluate what I need in my area as more people moving here have more money than the locals, driving up the cost of everything. Bob, where do you live? You might live in the South, right? Tennessee, Florida, some of the biggest states people are moving to. I don't know about the Carolinas anymore after Helene. It's like people were going from Florida to the Carolinas, and then all of a sudden, Jiminy Moses. That was tough. So we've got to think about our expenses. What are our expenses? Remember, this is what Fidelity says. How much will you spend in retirement? This is a great estimation. If you make less than $50,000, you're going to need to replace about 80%. 50 to 80,000, 75%. 80 to 120,000, it's just your current income. You're going to replace about 70%. More than 120,000, 55 to 65%. So this is just a good explanation, and it's an estimation. But you really want to have a detailed analysis of what your expenses are going to be. Now, let me show you why that's important. Let's take out these 2 items for Bob or for Jerry. Bob, I was thinking about your chicken biscuit. Sorry. Let's go back to retirement. See, look, in this case, Jerry's running out of money at 82. Now, we're not going to get into his scenario, but you see how the expenses are here, how they keep going? We want to know what our expenses are going to be. What's inflation going to look like? What's that going to do to our assets? What's the withdrawal order on our assets? What's the rate of return that we need to earn in order to make our money last forever? And we're getting ready to talk about investments. That's step number 3 in how to retire early, or 3 easy steps to retire early. But when you create a budget, it is a foundation to understanding all the other stuff. Because if we know what we need to spend, then we know, based with Social Security, if we have a pension, how much do we have to pull out? This is our net monthly cash flow for Jerry. Okay, this is our net monthly cash flow. It's got to come out of here. What do we need to earn to make this money last forever? In his case, it's 8.49%. That's a high percentage, right? So we need to understand what is your 2 things with the budget. What's your individualized inflation rate going to be for you based on your expenses? And based on that, what's the rate of return that you need to earn on your money? Because those are 2 different things. And based on your inflation rate, your rate of return will determine how long your money is going to last. Easy peasy? Easy peasy. Bob said the Carolinas. Lots of people moving to the Carolinas, pushing up. I know, Bob. I know. I saw where Indiana's like the number 1 state to move to right now because nobody's moving there. Cost of living's cheaper. They like basketball in Indiana. I like basketball. I'm from Kentucky. Show you that little UK. We got basketball. We got opening exhibition tonight, Mark Pope era in Kentucky. If any of y'all are college basketball fans, leave that in the comment section. Tell me who you're pulling for. Just don't pull it, but don't put in North Carolina or Duke. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, now let's talk about the 3rd step. So I got an appointment here in a little bit. Okay. Step number 1, 3 simple steps to retire early. Step number 1, set a high savings rate. Step number 2, budget, budget, budget. Say that 5 times fast. Budget, 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 budget. Okay. What are you willing to cut today for future freedom? That's why you budget. What are you willing to do today to have future freedom? Step number 3 is invest wisely. We want to invest wisely. Gary says, roll Tide. Yes, I remember that, Gary. Top Notch says, go Illini. Go Illini. Who's the head coach of the Illini now? I can't remember. You got a pretty good team. Invest wisely. Now, when you're trying to retire early, you want to stay invested. Now, why do I say that? Because so many people try to time the market. They try to get out. They try to get back in. They try to get out. They try to get back in. They try to pick the right stocks. They try to pick the right mutual funds. They try to get the right cryptocurrency. Stay invested. Now, I'm going to show you this stat. I'm going to show you this. Football's good in Indiana now. Y'all got a pretty darn good football team, IU. I saw that. Fast Eddie, go Yankees. I see you, Fast Eddie. I see you. Jason says this, I just set up an intro meeting for Monday. Should I do anything to prepare for it? And Jason, we'll send you out an email that'll talk about everything. First of all, thank you so much. Listen, if y'all want to set up an intro meeting with us, just go to our contact page. I think I have it on here. Whoops, right there. Go to our contact page. There's a Calendly link right there. You can click on the Calendly link, get right on our calendar. We will send you out an email that'll talk about exactly what we're going to talk about. So thank you so much for that. Excited to visit with you. Okay, so let me show you this. We're talking about investing wisely. Vanguard put this out. I love this. I send this email to a lot of my clients when they say things like, hey, Drew, I want to get out of the market. I want to go to all cash. And I'll say, hey, listen, it's your money. I want to do what you want to do. As a fiduciary, my job is to not tell you what to do. That's a lot of times what financial advisors try to do. They try to tell you what to do, right? I don't like doctors who try to tell me what to do. I have a really good primary care physician. His name's William, Dr. William. My name's William, so we get along really well. My first name's William. He doesn't tell me what to do. He guides me. He leads me. He takes my blood work. He says, hey, Drew, this is what I see based on your blood work. This is what I think you should do. What do you think? Do you want to do this, or would you like to go this other avenue? For my last 10 years of my married life, I have had a genetically high cholesterol. It's something that's in our family. It's something that's come up. I get my blood work done about every 6 months. I go see Dr. William, and my numbers are low. But the reason they're low is because I've worked with him, and he said, hey, Drew, this is what you need to cut out in your diet. You need to exercise. You need to exercise consistently. You need to do these things. And that's what we do as financial advisors. We say, hey, this is what you need to do. This is the guide. This is where I'm telling you based on data and based on research, but I can't make that final decision for you. You have to do it, right? I'm going to lead you to the water, right? You can take a horse, you can't get, right? Take a horse to water, can't make them drink. I'm going to take you there, but you got to reach down and drink the water. So Vanguard put this out. It says, why to focus on long-term market results. And I really like this. Retired 2019. Good morning. Miss seeing you. Good to see you. Hi, retired. Fast Eddie. Like Fast Eddie. Fast Eddie, we got to talk sometime. All right. There have been 12 bear markets, declines of 20% or more since 1980. Okay, so this is the global stock prices. And there's been 12 bear markets since 1980. Now, remember how I said at the very beginning, if you didn't get this, go back to the very beginning. I talked about, well, actually is the middle. I talked about savings rates. You want to have a high savings rate if you're trying to retire early. And I looked at having an 8% rate of return. I don't know if you can see that. 8% rate of return. The reason I use 8% is because a 60-40 portfolio over the last 50 years has averaged 8.5%. So since 1980, we've had 12 bear markets. That's a decline of 20% or more. Now look at where the stock market is at, global prices, since 1980. And this isn't even updated for 2024, right? This is just, I think this is a 2023 piece. We don't know when a recession might start. What we do know is that they do end. Most people get scared about recessions or downturns. And most of the time, people don't call me when the market's going up. They call me when the market's going down. But we don't know when these downs are going to stop, right? We don't know when that's going to happen. And that's why you want to stay invested. The third step in how to retire early in 3 easy steps is to stay invested. I want to get to, I'm going to skip a lot of this. You guys can find this on Vanguard. Actually, let me put this, I'm going to put this in the chat real quick. It comes in. Okay, I just put this link in the chat. It's a really good article for y'all to read through. And I think you'll get a lot from it. Jerry, K-State, Wildcats, just the wrong color. It's purple. We're blue. Y'all purple. But you did beat us in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. So I can't say anything. I can't really speak. I can't speak any ill about K-State. All right. So return distribution of moving to 100% cash. So let's talk about why we want to stay invested. So this is if we go to 100% cash and you stay 3 months in cash, you have a 74% probability of underperforming a 60-40 portfolio. Say that 5 times fast. With an average underperformance, underperformance of 4.1%. Meaning if you would have stayed invested during COVID, stayed invested in 08, stayed invested during whatever, then you actually would have outperformed somebody going to cash by 4.1%. And that's in a 60-40 portfolio. If you're younger, 30s, 40s, early 50s, and you're still in growth mode, you're going to outperform a lot more than 4.1% because you're in the S&P 500, NASDAQ, large caps, things like that. Now, if you were in 6 months in cash, you have a 71% probability of underperforming a 60-40 portfolio with an average underperformance of -7. That's 6 months in cash. 12 months in cash, you have a probability of underperforming a 60-40 portfolio with an average underperformance of 13.3%. I think we all understand this. We don't want to stay 12 months in cash, but this is why it's so important to stay invested, whether that's in your 401k. I've had so many people come to me and they're saying, hey, Drew, will you review my 401k? And I look at it and they've got 60, 70, 80% of their money is in stable value. It's in cash. And I go, when are you thinking about retiring? And they're like 10, 15 years. And I'm like, oh, you got to get invested. You want to stay invested. Okay. That's step number 1 in step number 3 on how to retire early. Steve says, go Vols. Now, Steve, my question to you is, I like Rick Barnes at Tennessee when it comes to basketball. Josh Heupel's fine at football. Can you say your quarterback's name 5 times fast? Because I can't say his name. Like I'm trying to, he's awesome, but I can't say his name. I think that's the running joke. Nobody can say his name. So we want to stay invested. Now, step number 2 in step number 3 of investing wisely and retiring early is understanding your cost. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about how much your portfolios cost outside of advisory fees. So you might pay an advisor. We manage money for clients at Fidelity and Charles Schwab and some other institutions. We charge 1% or less to manage assets. Now, you might do it on your own. I think that's wonderful. High five to you. We still help people. It doesn't matter if you manage it yourself or you don't. I think that's great. And a lot of people put in the comment section, yeah, he's telling you advice because he wants more money to manage. No, that's not true. I'm a fiduciary. We do what's in our best client's interest. I actually had a client call me yesterday. She had a pension, lump sum pension. The company was saying, hey, we'll give you your pension in a lump sum, or you can just keep it as a pension. And she's like, Drew, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to give it to you to manage because you can do better. And I said, no. Let's talk through this. And after we got done with it, it was made in her best interest. She was a single gal. She was 62, I think. And she wasn't going to retire till 70. She started later in life, had some divorce, had some issues. So we were going to retire at 70. It made more sense for her money to stay in the pension and then to get a monthly check. Now, for me, what would have been better for me? To take the money out and put it at Fidelity and invest it and charge 1%. But for her, it was her best interest to leave the money in her account at 70, turn on the pension and have her pension cash flow along with Social Security. And so that is really important. But I want to talk about investment fees. I want to talk about the cost of mutual funds and ETFs. And this is what I want to look at. So let me just pull up Google real quick here. Growth fund. Okay. So I want to show you 2 things. And if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments section. Perfect. This is the one thing I didn't have prepared. Okay, here we go. So I want to show you, this is one of the most popular mutual funds in America. So you've got American funds, you got Vanguard, you got Fidelity. American funds are one of the most popular. You see a lot of these in 401ks. I get a lot of these clients bring these over and I see them. This is the American Funds Growth Fund of America Class C mutual fund. Now, it's a good fund. You look over the year to date, it's done really well. Obviously, if you're watching this video at a later time, this is 2024. We've had a pretty good market, okay, as of October 22nd. I don't know where we're at today. We're down a little bit on October 23rd. Now, what I want you to look at is this right here. You see where this says expense ratio? You might zoom in on that. Expense ratio, 1.39%. That is the internal cost to own this fund, 1.39%. Now, let's say your advisor put you in this and he was getting 1%. What's your fee now? What's 1 plus 1.39? 2.39, right? The question I ask people is, I said, do you know the ABCs of mutual funds? A shares, B shares, C shares, institutional shares, R shares. Do you know the ABCs? And they'll say, I don't know. I say A share is when you go into a fund, you pay a commission to get into that fund, but there's a lower internal cost. There's no fee to get out of it. A B share, haven't seen a B. I've seen maybe 2 B shares in 15 years of being a financial advisor. But a B share is you go into it, there's no cost to go in, but to get out, you pay a commission. A C share, there's no cost to get in, no cost to get out, but internally there's a fee, and it's usually higher. And that's called an expense ratio. Now, do you realize that American Funds has the exact same fund in a different share? And people will be like, I didn't know that. And I go, oh, let me show you this. This is the American Funds, Growth Fund of America. Wait, is that the same fund? Growth Fund of America. Instead of Class C, Class R6, institutional. Still year-to-date performance, right? Year-to-date performance looks very familiar. But what's different? I'm just going to leave that there for a second. What's the difference? Big difference, right? Expense ratio on the C share is 1.39. Expense ratio on the R share is 0.30. Same fund. I'm not talking about the fund. It's done really well. So you got to understand your fees. Now, another way to look at this is a growth fund, right? It's actively managed. Let me show you something else. This is the Vanguard 500 Index Fund, VFINX. Okay. It's a growth fund. It's S&P 500, just like Growth Fund of America. Remember, we're trying to figure out if we're going to retire early, we got to keep our fees low. VFINX, what's the expense ratio on this one? 0.14. What's that? Like a meme face. That's even lower, right? We're trying to grow our money. Same thing here, Growth Fund of America. 0.139, 0.30, 0.14. That's a big deal, guys. And that's in your 401k, 403b, IRAs, Roth IRAs. You put all that money into your Roth 401k, Roth IRA, and you don't understand the fees? Tax-free, all that money just... And you can actually get this even lower. I don't know if they show it on here. Let me see if I can find it real quick without. They don't show it there. Give me just... I need like Vanna White music. Okay, let me show you this. This is the Vanguard VU. We talked about this earlier. S&P 500. This is the ETF. What's the expense ratio? 0.03. So you see how fees are a big deal? And I get it. I understand paying an advisor. If you don't understand investing or you don't want to do it and you have an advisor and they charge a fee of 1% or less, totally get it. We're all in. We got to keep our lights on. I mean, if you work at people always say, well, I can't believe you take a fee, Drew. I'm like, well, I'm not the Salvation Army, right? Like, do you work somewhere and do you give away free stuff at your work? I mean, I do work for money. But, we don't have to nickel and dime. Let's keep the fees low. That's going to make your money grow. If you want to retire early or retire at 65 or retire at 70, you want to keep your fees low. 0.03 is going to do that. Okay, so step number 3, how to retire early in 3 easy steps. Stay invested. Low cost investments, step number 2 in that. Number 3, max your match. We talked a little bit about this. If you get a match in your 401k, 403b, the data shows us that a lot of people do not sign up for their 401ks and 403bs. And the automatic people who are automatically signed up ain't contributing enough. And so max your match. If you have a company, we have Lockheed Martin, Honeywell here in our area. If you get a 3% match, put in 3%. That's 6%. That's free money. Max your match. Now, I've got about 5 minutes. I want to talk about 2 things real quick. Mo Riviera. Step 4, 5, 6, 7. Stay healthy. Fingers crossed. Yes. Eat your broccoli. Walk 30 minutes a day. do some lifting, lift some weights, and then, once a week, get barbecue like I do, right? Because I like barbecue. Retire 219 says, do you provide a fee-only service? Yes, we do. So we have two types of services. We have a fee-only service, which we build out financial EKGs for clients, for people who do their investing and want to do all that on their own. We also offer investment services. So we offer more than just investments. We offer both. Great question, Retired. Thank you so much. Now, the second to last thing I want to talk about is a freedom fund. And I've only got 4 minutes because I got an appointment at 11 and I got to go to the bathroom because I've been drinking my Chick-fil-A coffee. A freedom fund is a fund. It's not necessarily in the IRS code. I call it a freedom fund, but it's a basket of money that you can use to bridge the gap between when you retire and 59 and a half. So if you want to retire at 55 and you have a 401k or an IRA, there are special rules that you can use, the rule of 55, a 72T. But what if you don't want to use those? You can actually build up a freedom fund, a brokerage account, and you can use that money to bridge yourself to 59, 62, Social Security, 67, 64, whatever. But building that freedom fund is going to be so beneficial for you in retirement. So let me give you a practical example. Let's say, I don't know if I can erase this. Let me erase this quickly, real quick. Let me use my handy dandy whiteboard here. I like my visuals. Somebody said the other day they didn't like my video because I'd used a whiteboard. I didn't use any computer software. And I was like, dog, like, give me a break, man. You just trying to find something to comment about? Like, I don't like it. You didn't use any computer software. Okay. Like, all right, whatever, dude. All right, so let me give you a visual of this, okay? Let's say on a yearly basis, you have about $5,000 that you can invest for retirement, okay? So I'm just saying $5,000. And let's say you want to put $2,500 of that into your 401k, preferably a Roth 401k, if you have that ability. And then let's say, okay, so you're putting your money into your 401k. The other $2,500, we want to put into what we call a non-qualified brokerage account. Now, if you're married, it might be a joint account. If you're single, they would call it an individual account or a TOD, a transfer on death. And what you're able to do is this money, this 401k money, has to follow IRS rules and regulations, right? It's tax-free, but you can't take it out to a 59 and a half unless it's the rule of 55. But this brokerage account over here, it gives you the ability, as this money continues to grow, to take it out whenever you want. If you want to take it out at 47 to buy a car, you can do that. You get your roof ripped off in a hurricane, right? Like a lot of people here in Tampa did. You can take it out and buy a roof, okay? But this gives you the ability to bridge till you get to Social Security or over age 59 and a half. Now, I'm not telling you not to invest in your 401k. You want to put as much into your 401k to get the match, right? But I would say that down the road, because of where taxes are going to be, it's going to be more beneficial to have a brokerage account that's going to be taxed more efficiently, interest, dividends, capital gains, than to have money into a 401k pre-taxed where the Uncle Sam's 30% of your partnership, right? A Roth 401k, if you can do Roth, that's what I want you to do. Roth. But this brokerage account, we call it a freedom fund because it gives you the ability to have freedom to say, I'm leaving. I don't have to stay at this job. I don't have to continue to work till I'm 59 and a half, 60 if I don't want to. A lot of times people use their freedom fund for health insurance. They use their 401k. We use the rule of 55, which means if you retire in the year that you turn 55, you can use your current 401k for retirement income without a penalty. You pay taxes, but no penalty. Now, with the Roth 401k, obviously there's no taxes. But we've used this brokerage account over here to pay for health insurance. I got a client that retired at 49. That's what we did. We're using it for health insurance. So you want to invest wisely. You want to stay invested. You want to be in low-cost funds. You want to max your match You want to put money into a freedom fund or into a Roth IRA, and you want to continue to invest. Let me see if I can get some of these comments. Alan says, I'll be in touch for a meeting soon. Thanks, Alan. Oh, I like your fish. That's a cool picture there. Looking forward to that. Bob says, health is such a big deal for retirement. My dad retired earlier than he wanted, expected due to a heart attack. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal. This is my grandfather. I don't know if I have a picture of them. You used to have a picture of them. My dad's dad retired at 65, and he worked for the railroad. He was in the military. He was in the Army for 9 years, fought in World War II, did island hopping, worked for the railroads, retired at 65, pension, goes and plays golf, sneezes, hurts himself, goes to the doctor. They found a little pinhole on his, I think it was his lung, and within 6 months, he was dead. He had asbestos cancer. Gone. So health is really important. That's why I say you got to balance living life, right? Fire movement, awesome. It's great. But we don't know. Only the Lord knows how many days we got, right? And so you want to live life, okay? Fast Eddie said, just opened a brokerage account. Awesome, Fast Eddie. Do it. Mr. Somebody says, how much percentage-wise of your total net worth would you recommend to be in your freedom fund? You know, I don't know if I have a percentage on that. That's a great question. I look at it as if you're going to retire before 59 and a half, how much money do we need to bridge? For me, I'm self-employed, so it's a little different. So we have solo 401ks, things like that. But I put the vast majority of my money into my brokerage account, my wife and I's joint account, because I don't want anybody ever changing the rules or laws and being like, you got to take that money out. I also think about my 3 kids from a legacy standpoint. I don't want anybody to be like, now your Roth IRA is taxed for the beneficiaries, right? Or your IRA, they got to take it all out at one time and boom, it's taxed. So for me, we put a vast majority, Mr. Somebody, I would just say it's something that we have to have a conversation about, say what's actually your goals and dreams and what are you looking for? Steve says, I'll reach out for a follow-up soon. Looking forward to it. Steve. Gary says, thank you for your honesty. Be blessed. Until next time. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. All right. Any other questions? I got like 3 minutes to run to the men's room and then get ready for my next appointment. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I've enjoyed, I love doing, we're going to try to keep doing more live streams. If you want to get in touch with us, go to pearlwealthgroup.com. Go over here to the, is it not scrolling for me? Go to this connect with us page here. There's a calendar link right here. You can get right on our calendar and we can have a discussion about your retirement. Thank you so much for watching, guys. God bless. Bye-bye.